So if you want, maybe we can record it, and then we don't
Yeah,
have to be
it
so
started.
specific in our
Right.
case. And um, so what I'm saying is, like, if you have a project like where it's a technological project, you know, the basis, so it's a choreography where the one of the main subjects of the production is the technology. Then, are you still there? Because then you
Yeah.
froze.
Yep.
Okay. So since the technology is one of the main subjects, is the technology a part of the dancers, and then the choreographer, which is the, let's say, the main the director, you know, like the one who is in charge of the artistic direction and the total direction in a way of the project. Then there is a lot of miscommunication, or there's a lot of effort that it has to be translated. That's basically between the desires of the choreographer, which comes with not only, I will say, the standards, but just the nature of choreography
Hmm.
is normally is very specific. If you study choreography of dance for many years, then normally you work very frame between space and time, let's say. Um, and then in plus, in top of the space and time that you are very trained as choreographer and as a dancer, then you want this specificity of the dance, of the choreographic aspects, to be translated into something that is technological. Maybe let me try to reframe it. It's like, you're, as a choreographer, then you will try to translate poetics into something that is technological, and that's very costly in terms of production, because then,
Hmm.
since she cannot handle the whole thing by herself, let's say if I will be the choreographer, just me and my dancers, then my abstraction in my wishes, uh, they, since it's like human to human with something that is dance, then it takes less time until I can make feasible or possible these things that I want as choreographer. It will
With the
take less
dancers.
time
Yeah.
with the dancers, because we talk anyway about abstraction or poetics that comes from my head as choreographer, right? But when the subject, let's say, is, when we talk about technology or robots in this case, and the robots by itself, they have, let's say, if it's this ball that moves, then you need first, you, as developer or person in charge of the technology, you need to first understand what is the world inside of that ball, how that ball can move,
Hmm.
and that just that process will take long time, just by nature. It's just
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
And then, so then you have this process normal, and then the other ones is the choreographic aspect, and there's the director, and then the poetics that are being trying to translate, it takes way longer than what is the between the choreographer and the dancer, than the choreographer and the robot, because it's basically about abstractions and poetics.
Hmm.
uh,
Have you seen works from Rhizomatics?
Maybe you can send me a link,
Yeah. I mean, it's not like it's
or
not in.
just put the name, and then I'll just gonna look it up afterwards
Yeah. I'll send it to
in
you
the chat.
later. But I just
Okay.
open search tab, so I will remember. No, because
Okay.
yeah, this is recorded, so I shouldn't say bad things too much. But
Okay. True, true.
I
It's
gave this
okay.
example
Nobody's
because
listening to us.
I gave this example because they work with they are let's say like a media like design studio or whatever, like they work with technology and makes like media facade or stage, design for concerts and stuff like that, like with lights
Yeah.
and displays. It's really, in
Yeah.
that sense, it's they are really doing something conventional, but also like, I mean, they're also interested in like more like research aspects with AI and VR, like something that's more experimental, and which is quite interesting. But like, they often work with dancers they always work with the same dancers from they are from Japan, and also they work with the dancers from Japan. And I would say like their choreography is always very harmless. Like it's very conservative. That like for example, they work with projections or like lasers or drones, like robot arms, all these things, but they kind of skips like what you explained for, you know, like understanding the technology or like choreographic aspects. Like they kind of bypass all these things and make everything super simple so that they don't really have conflict with the dancers and technology. Well, they must have something, some struggles working
Yeah.
on these things. But yeah, I just wanted to say this because if you look at the pieces, it's really um, not touching. Like it's really like showing the technology through the dance piece, but the dance
Right.
itself is really not telling you anything. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's
Yeah.
like one thing, one less interesting way of working with it. But I totally understand, because then if you have to like deliver messages, like to be really deep into, you know, concepts between the technology and movements, then it will take ages to really, you know, work with this subject. It's just like it takes
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
if you just keep up with like new technologies, it's just like impossible, you know.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But I think you touch a topic that I think is interesting, maybe to come to come back. That is this idea of you said deliver message. You know, there's going back to what we said. This idea of the context, content, and the message is this. Once you're trying to deliver a message, then because then the nature of the subjects, all the stakeholders in the project, they have their own nature. And then if you work with technology, then depends which technology are you using. It has its own constraints, which are no humans. It's just starting from that point, and it's just it has this feeling as you describe, where you can see productions that they look good, let's say that they can form and they can present something that you can see as one thing, that it looks good and it's nice, but it doesn't transcend or going somewhere as a message. Or you have the other way around, which is like when people then the people are trying to then work in poetics or in delivering a message, then it's a mess, no? Because I think, and I think it's not, I think it's because those processes, I think they just need way more time, no? You need just to chill the fuck up and then just work. Yeah, uh, I think a good example is, for instance, like maybe, and then we can go start like going to. I was watching a part of like your first video, for instance, and then when you're there alone, and then I see that, for instance, that there is some of the things that they for me gets clear is that then when I see you, then I see you then sometimes a part of when there is a flow, when we define a flow, then you have these different interactions. They are you dancing on the music, are you dancing on the visuals? uh, I think that's, I mean, and then you can go in more inner layers, but I think basically then I could see like sometimes like are you dancing on what you hear, or are you hearing and then or are you dancing for what you're seeing? uh, yeah. Because I think one of the things I couldn't watch completely the second part, which I watched just the last few minutes of this of your last session, and that was super colorful and there was a lot of
Yep.
passion. Let's say it seems like a lot of things going on there, like, and it looks like uh, yeah, like it was like really crazy, because then the way how the visuals were made, like you are out, in, out with the chroma and the colors, it just like
Right.
was super
Yeah, I think I
super
made it like
intense.
I disappear sometimes with the sound, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. So what I think is that um, I think like because we are talking about message, and then when you talk about message, it means like communication, and communication is based in two person in two in something that is the thing, the subject that emits a message, and the other one who receives the message, right? And in that sense, for instance, when we work, when there is you and me, then regardless of how interesting is the final product, let's say the visuals, if we just if the focus is the visuals, regardless of how interesting are the visuals, is that you can see that there is more, um, yeah, there's communication, because like sometimes, because then you have to wait to what I'm doing something, or I have to wait when you do something, and because there is no I cannot control what you want to do, I have to just wait and handle all these things within my desires. And this part of the things that we were saying before, the last session. The things that I want to create in my, let's say, in my composition. That's very conscious, no? And then there is a clear dialogue between, there is another person. There's another person who is listening to me and who is sending something to me. And then when you are alone, then is certainly is different, because I was thinking it's a practice, because then it's like you could be practicing with yourself. So it's part. I was thinking I was thinking at some point, is this a best practice? I was thinking, is this a best practice? And one could say like, are you're practicing with things that you like, and then that's, so it's a practice. And then what it makes it more tricky is that is because there is no clear definition of who is what is the receptor. Then sometimes it gets or it gets super boring. There's more, I think, in the first video, like or it takes really long until it ramps up, or there are just chunks when there's something happening. Or like if I see the second video, the last part when there's completely massive mayhem, and then there is just all this fire, like and it's like Power Ranger thing. Like I see like powers like going there, and it's like super colorful and super cool. Actually, it looks really good. Um, but then again, if there is, and then we talk about the message, is super convoluted, right? Because there is, let's say me, and I know what is the framework because I work with you. Uh, then I get confused. I get confused a lot in the sense of in the message. Let's say, even though there is not a narrative, I get confused in the. That was the question. Like, are you moving on the sound? Is the sound moving you? Are you moving on the visual? Is the visual moving you? And that's very interesting, like to think that, because it makes me as well imagine, because I don't know what are you doing, just I have to make sense of what you do.
So
But
you're
it's
trying to follow
certainly,
what I was kind of thinking, or like what
of
was
course.
my, yeah, 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 of course, yeah.
And actually, what is cool as well is because then I'm following as well your coding, and actually I like that idea, because there is a timeline with the coding, like with the Hydra. There is a timeline. There is that evolves, and it's always gone from 0 to 100% in the 2 sessions. You start like, and then just you type a little bit, and then you type a little bit more, you type a little bit more, until so it's like a ballet. Like it's just, it starts and it finishes. There is a narrative with the coding that I can follow.
I see.
I can follow following the codes that, okay, now you're saturating not 0% that you're gray, but now you are saturating 3%. That's why I see more colors, you know. um yeah, and some of those things I think are cool, because in then you don't need to know too much about coding, just you need to know a little bit of, yeah, a little bit of some background of something similar, and then
Mm.
you will start making sense of it, because there is a, it moves, you know, it advances, the code will evolve, and then you will see, okay, that means red, that means this, and as well as clear, something that it says saturation, it
Yeah.
says yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's really convoluted and really hard to like like I don't know where to start really, because also about the coding itself, like I started to think a lot about like what is coding for me and what is this practice, like best practice in coding, for example, because this is
Mm.
like um this is I had this in mind while I was doing this session by myself. Like for example, like I decided not to save the code while I'm performing, so to say, or practicing, because it's something that it builds up during the while encoding. Like you said, it's like a timeline that adds up and creates something.
Yeah.
And also like I consciously don't save it or recreate what I did in the past. I mean, of course, I need to copy some of the parts for the chroma key and stuff, but
Yeah.
more like adding colors and things, because the coding itself is like something made to be productive. Like
What do you
it's
mean with that? What do you mean with that?
like the nature of coding is it's really industrial, and it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
something
yeah,
that it has to be perfect. You don't want the
yeah,
like a
yeah.
bug, and you
No,
also
no,
want to
no.
save it every single time, because you don't want to lose anything, and it's
Yeah,
just made for perfection. And although always there's a bug, um, it's about the productivity. And I started to think like what is really also this name creative coding that people say. And after watching some Martin's videos, what is really creativity? Because like how he frames it is like they give you the structure or the frame where you can be creative, but it's within the possibility, right? It's not
yeah,
create create. It's not like about doing something outside that frame. But so given that,
yeah,
what creative coding means is like, for example, if you have processing, you do something with processing, and you just end up doing something inside processing or inside touch designer or whatever tool that you're using, which is also, I mean, it's not, I'm not saying it's boring, but I started to think like, what's, and what is, if there's another way to do that. And I think live coding is something, I mean, of course, I'm still stuck inside Hydra or tidal cycles for the sound, but well, I don't know where I'm trying to go, but why did I say creative coding? Um, anyways, I think I'm trying to not to think that as creative, and also I think productive and creatives kind of have something similar. I don't know. Maybe I'm mixing up some different things because I'm kind of confused these days. But
no, but I think is, I mean, the way how I see it is that I start thinking on this, no, that what what does it mean, that what does it mean to, when you said like best practice, then we said like, okay, then you practice, no, then you practice something, and then I think then um I think we're in a good path in terms of like, I mean, I will say more that I think eventually we should find what are the things that we want to practice, right? You know, then we've defined better. That, I think that I introduced this idea the last time that we talked. You know, then when we talk about like me projecting in the chapel when there are more elements, and in terms of the elements, all these elements that get convoluted and so convoluted until the point that it's just really out of the hand or of our hands, which is okay. And I guess at some points, but I think eventually we would like, I would like to set, we are practicing more or less this framework, you know, and eventually. But I said eventually because it's not my intention right now, because I feel if I frame myself too much, I mean, we need some minimum of frame, you know, like it's not that the next time I see you, then I will start, I don't know, like I start doing completely something out of the bloom because I just think it's nice. Maybe I just start using a ball robot in front of in the Facebook chat and just like, yeah, let's try to practice this because I have one robot now here. So, um, but I think my intention at this moment is more than this. The intention of what we are working is still like to free ourselves, you know, like to have a good time. And because of that, then I feel that we are close to what a child does, you know, in terms of like just learning to walk and learning to see what is around its world, no. That's what I'm thinking, that eventually I think then we should say like will be cool, you know, this, we said like this practice, then we define these tools and just these tools, and then we have to work on that eventually. uh, but
Well,
I don't feel.
I don't know. I follow what you mean, um, but it's kind of like for me, as I said, it's something about like how how can we go beyond the frame of, like, let's say coding, and but that doesn't necessarily conflict with what you said, because I think it's like well, I think it's like what he was saying, but basically like I need kind of frame so that I can go outside the frame, because
Yeah,
I cannot just
yeah,
say
yeah,
that,
yeah.
okay, I do whatever. That's like kind of shit, you know.
No,
But like,
no,
for
no.
example, then I need Hydra to do something beyond Hydra, let's say, and that's kind of
Yeah,
interesting. But I don't know if that frame, like, for example, like to be concrete, like should we say that we always use Hydra and tidal cycles for the sound, or is it something else that, if there's
no,
other way
because I
to
think
like
no,
frame
because
something?
I have a feeling of this as well, because I thought one of the first, like one of the first thing that I felt when I saw like more the second thing what you made, because it was so rich, the visual looks really good. Then I feel in a way threat. I feel that threat. I feel like, oh my god, I didn't practice, you know. Then you have an advantage with me, and then so then that was the first thought that I have. It's like I was feeling threat because I didn't practice, and because then you're more comfortable with the Hydra, and then I thought, oh no, maybe I should just practice by myself, and then just I need to level up, and then I think I have two thoughts about around that idea. One is like, um, yes, I guess in as with anything, then it's better if you know more. But yeah, so there's one
Sure.
thing. But I think in terms for what we're doing, it make no sense to me, because that was my assumption. But it make no sense to me to start a competition with you. You know, like what is the point of that? And because of that, then I was saying, then is like, for instance, because then is the framework that we define at this point is like we have Hydra and some things that we usually work with. Then is like, if at some point uh, is the tool is getting uh, too common to you, let's say, or to me, then is I think is up to, there's two ideas. Then one is like, I think it's my responsibility to And then I think it in terms of dance as well, because in dance as well, it happens the same to me. Then it's like how I can make something, is what you were saying. You know, how can I within the frame I can get out of the frame, and that's because that that limitation is what actually will free me. Um, yeah. Um, so um, yeah, because basically otherwise we enter, but I think it's okay as well. I think, but then we start entering a discussion about tools, and then we get out of the practice, and that's what I was referring, and that's what I'm trying to say in the beginning of the chat when I said that it's not my interested. I'm not interested right now in defining too much, you know, even though we have to
Mm.
define some minimums. I and then I said like eventually I would like we to define more frameworks, but then not right now, because otherwise that we end up doing or talking about tools, and that's what is the nature of engineering. That was normally actually the problem when you as a choreographer try to work with technology, and because you have the tool, you have the tool, let's say you have the robot that you have to move, and there is just so much that you need to know to make that robot move from side to side. There's so much you need to know about just the robot, and then the network, and then the whole thing, and a part of that you have to translate the message from the choreographer. So there's too much in that. So just the tool is way, it's just a world in itself. And I think what we're trying to define here when we work with the best practices, as I think more, is not talking too much about the tools, because that's what you do. I think that's what it happens in the choreographic coding lab. You know, then you talk too much about, or then you try to create tools, and like at some point we were talking like maybe we need to create, maybe peacemaker is not working for us, maybe we need to work, maybe we need to create that, and that's okay if it at some point we end up there. And but I think I think still we are evolving in what we're doing, and not putting the point on the tool. It's that's how I feel. I don't know how you think about, what do you think about this idea of the
Mm.
how you see the tools.
It's, I mean, what I, well, first of all, I think we are seeing this from like very different perspectives. I'm not trying to make it complicated, but for me, um, it's hard to say. But I think what I just thought about was tool. Like if you use a tool, you don't have to understand the tool, right? Like you have to know how to use it in your way, and it doesn't matter like how the tool is made, like especially for like programming, for example. Like you don't have to know Java and all,
The black
these
box. Yeah,
how
that's the black
CPU
box
works.
idea.
Yeah, yeah, to
Yeah,
use
the black box idea.
processing.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
so that's something like if you're working with a robot, then like you don't have to necessarily know everything about Arduino and how motors are controlled, and you don't need that. But I mean, but robot is probably not a good example, because it's very hard to make it black box, because in this low level
yeah,
engineering part, it's kind of connected anyways. So, but for example, like
yeah,
for visuals, like you don't have to understand like how GPU works, but still you can make,
yeah,
just
yeah.
connect things and something works, and then you
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
start to make your own practice within that tool. And I think that's more interesting to me. Yeah.
I think I didn't completely understood. If you can reframe,
Hmm?
I think I didn't like what you said is like, then if we talk about nine visuals, then it's not necessary to know
Everything about
the
the
low
tool, but
level, like yeah, the black box of tool
and you
in
just
the
like
visuals.
try something and accidentally something happens, and then with time you start to, build your own practice. And
Yeah,
but what I
but yeah, sorry, yeah. I think what I was trying to say, because I'm trying to bring the discussion into this, that we start talking. There was the, when we talk about the choreographer and the message, and is because regardless, that's how I feel. That regardless, the tool that I decide to use is more important, actually, my process toward the message, even though it's not clear or there is not a narrative that it starts and ends at some point, but there is an iterative process in which I'm developing more or less, like for instance, in that case, like I need you to give me, to send, to give me feedback, to give me, to send me your visuals, to keep on going with my own trying on the message. So yeah, so then how I feel with them, with the tools, is that regardless of the tools that we choose, is then it's important than what we are trying to do within the message. Does that make sense?
sorry, I didn't get it.
Yeah, no, I think basically it's just this idea that, yeah, I think that's how I feel, that regardless regardless the tool, is the message what I'm aiming for. Yeah, to
But what is a
communicate
message?
something.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we have, but that's what we have to define. That's very
Mm,
important. That's what is very important in your question, because I am there, but because of that, then I need you there. um, and that's what I found is very, very interesting, that this framework that you propose, and when you start like doing when you do a solo, for instance, because then when I see you doing the solo, then I will do it. I will try to do it in my time. Then just there I can see um, um, some things that, how to explain that, because when you're alone, then there is not this waiting time in this assumption of what is happening there in the other side. I don't know if there's delay. I don't know if I should wait, because maybe I see a pattern that I think I might use, but I don't know if it will evolve in the way how I want it. um, uh, all these things in terms of my desires of me, it just takes just in terms of dynamics, is more, let's say, is more natural. It's natural because there's a conversation there, and then I
mm.
have to deal with my own desires, because then you are the other side, and there's delay, and there's all these constraints of the tools, and then I found it super rich. And then what I think is very, then to close, and what I'm trying to say is that, then because of that, then I think it's very important that we talk and try to define what is the message, because maybe there is no message. While they just, we have to define what is the message. It's not, maybe it's not that we are trying to say like save the world, don't use plastic or something, or is that what we want to say, like, or do we
Mm.
like Rihanna? um, like,
Yeah.
but like those things are
Um,
very clear.
yeah. Well, maybe Rihanna is actually, yeah. I mean, I mean, not saying like make fun of it, but it's really clear that,
Yes,
But
it's clear.
I think it's really like what Martin was trying was, that, people like it, and he just put it there because people like, well, not because people like it, but, it's really clear that, I don't know if that's really the message or anything, but, it's something that we find agreement in a way. Agreement, I don't
Yes.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but
Yeah.
completely. And I think it's because there is this comes from this, is minimal in under. It's the same way how it goes communication. And the last time we
Mm,
were talking of the same. Like, for you to understand my language, you need to know about English. Then you can recognize the message within the words, right? So it's the same. Like, then if you put it more abstract, into something like if you say like about Rihanna and then you put a kitsch song, is because people will fast like catch what is it. You know, they don't need to go and try to put so many under layers. It's just something that
True,
you can just jump in or just back off.
true. Yeah, well, that's one thing. And about the message, or more about the conversation, like I was like while I was doing my solo, I have to say it was really fun, but also like I always have this problem that like, to be honest, I always want to work alone because I always have problem with, communication. And
Yeah.
but then how I see now, like I work with you, and also I work with Yansu in Montreal, and we do like different kind of practice, but it's like on the, like it's also like online, and we do something together. And what I think is, I start to think like this is not like I still feel that I want to work alone, but it's more about I find a way that suits me, like how I can work, I can feel comfortable working. Because, for example, I never felt comfortable in a dance studio or art studio to work there because I don't know how to do it. I Although I spend some time in like in a dance studio, but like I still feel like
Even when you're alone.
I'm when I'm alone. And
When you're
like
alone.
if I'm just taking workshop, for example, that's okay. And but then if I want to do something, if I want to create my own work in a dance studio alone or with someone, I just don't know what to do because it's well, one, it's not like something I'm trained to do, but also like think I I think it might not be the best way to work for me. And while we're doing this best practices, I start to feel like, well, maybe this is not exactly the way I want to work, but it's really a challenge to find my own studio, well, quote unquote, because it's not a studio, but let's say like workplace or where things are created. And I mean, of course, we're doing it together, but it's also really personal process because I'm here alone and we have kind of separation. I mean, physically.
Yeah.
So that this is something I started to think, and that within that frame, it's fine for me to work with someone else because it's more about the context or content. I don't know. I don't know if at that
Yeah.
point, but
That
so
makes
this is
that makes
something
sense what you're saying.
and this is something I started to think. And then if I do my solo, it's fine. It was fun. Like especially the second one was really fun. But then I start to feel I'm not sure if I want to continue this. Like if I'm just like want to have fun, I think it's fine. But then if I just do it every day, probably it's not what I'm looking for because then I start to get lost. Like because there's no conversation and like there's no message
Yeah.
basically. And maybe
Even
it's a
even
pure
though, yeah,
maybe it's a pure form of dance or some kind of expression with the technology, but I'm not so interested in that.
yeah, I think it's very it makes sense the things that you said and what you talk about is 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 very interesting because you said about it. I mean, and just because often when I'm start doing is because it's the way how I see actually or collaboration that I see that is growing, because then I see as well then how I can practice things that I know, for instance. um, and then when you talk, for instance, then often I'm putting this in translating that into dance now, like how that works in my head with dance, and then I can see myself as well, like in alone in the studio. Then when, let's say, if I dance alone, and then sometimes I have a good session by myself, and then it's cool. I certainly I won't I could not extend that as a practice, like every week by myself doing it, because I will burn myself with my own content in terms of my dance skills. Even though I will enjoy very much some sessions, I will burn myself because then I have no feedback, and then it's this weed with myself. And that's something that I learned on the way, and with compositional tools in improvisation. Then from dancers that they can do a lot of amazing stuff, like a lot of with people who do hip hop and these kind of things, and then do acrobatics and stuff like that. When somebody is dancing alone in front of 20 people who are dancers, who are there to do constructive criticism on your work, then you see it as a constant. Then if you have to dance for 15 minutes, let's say, you have a repertoire, of tricks that after 2 minutes you will burn. And the only thing how you can survive is using your gaze, basically, and just being in the moment. And basically, it's a stop. That's a trick. That's something that I learned on the way. Like, and you stop, you know. Then when that makes a huge difference. Then when you stop dancing, and then you take the time to not move, and then just to feel what is happening as human. And but it's a super difficult thing because then you have to be you with yourself, and there is no place to go. you know it's just you and the things that are cool, and yeah, it's you with yourself. And I completely relate with the things that you said. And 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 then I think that, going back to this idea, when I feel um that I feel in a disadvantage, let's say, because then you know more about Hydra or than me, or more coding than me. And then there was the first thing that I thought when I saw that, and it looked so good. And then after, in time, with more hours, and then I thought like, but there's not the point. Like, if what I'm doing with you is competing with you, it's like, one could be like, yeah, that could be one reason to do it. But then might be more interesting is like, then find within me what is that I can do within the framework to maybe challenge you, because I could challenge you if I competing with you, right? Then you have to step up, and then you have to step up. But uh, if I find within my own means how can I challenge you as partner, and then it's more rich. That then I think is more playful than just competing with you. You know, if
Yeah, I
if
mean,
I if I yeah, sorry.
this feels a little bit like detour and this, competition. But I think I wanted to say something about, oh yeah, like when we were doing together, it feels like also it's a conversation, but it's also really extremely personal, because when I watch your video, like, it's like we're not doing anything together in a way. Like, we're
Yeah,
just doing something, like we receive something, I receive something from you and you receive something from me, but it's part of the content, let's say, and we're
yeah,
not like trying to make
yes,
something together, which is also a really
true,
interesting thing. And
true.
but okay, so that's something I want to say. And for the competition part,
That's true.
I feel like this is really interesting thing I found was, I feel like coding, like more productive way of coding, like maybe I can take a moment, or while you're
No, yeah. So yeah,
taking notes. Yeah.
no,
So
because what you said was good. Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, and we can come back to that. But for the competition part, I feel this coding, like people make tools and make it open source, upload it so that people can use it, right? It's like, this is kind of the one of the culture of, let's say, creative coding. Although I don't like the name. And I think this is really interesting that, like, hip hop, like, they also inspire each other, and kind of, it's not like, but you don't really steal it. You can steal something, but then people will know it, and you have to like do it in a, I don't know what's the right way, how you know, take techniques from others and make it into your own technique. I don't know exactly how this works, but I feel this is like a little bit like a similarity between how creative coders do it and how it works in hip hop. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making up.
No, but I think it makes sense. Uh,
But this
yeah,
is,
I think
but
maybe.
again, this is not what I want to do. Like also because this is extremely productive side of coding, that you
Yeah,
save
yeah,
everything and
yeah.
you make it public and you help each other. It's good, but I'm not going to that direction because that is what makes it coding. And I think I have to question that in order to go outside this coding, which I start to think it's like a post coding, although it's kind of, I think it's too early, but I think we need post coding. But
Yeah,
that's,
yeah, I
yeah.
think I see what you mean with that. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that's true. No, I think it's very, it's very. There is an analogy when you talk about the hip hop, and then when you talk like the nature of code, and yeah, basically just you you just copy paste many times things that other people write, and then just you make it yourself, like through just some iterative process. But it's the way how it goes, no? And then when you see like when they're more creative coding, then you see that there is this aim to it's very productive. It's true, no? Like there is this is aimed to make something, no? And it actually ramps up, which is yeah is then the that's what I think is interesting. Or I would like to. I think it's I see like that when I work with you, then I can see then we have peaks, you know, that we have peaks. Yeah, when we work together, and then I see we have peaks when let's say visually there are things happening and then destroyed, and then happening and then destroyed, you know. And from that point of view, then the poetics arises in there, regardless of if they are the best thing ever. There are peaks. And then if you go then back to the creative coding, if you think in this in the creative coding live coding parties and these kind of things, it's just ramp it up. It's like the way how you actually in your two solos you ramp it up. Is because and it's the same how a dancer will do
Mm,
with the tricks and the hip hop, because there is this the space to just stop the dance. It's not something somebody will teach you. You have to find it by yourself. And I guess just it's not in the nature of code like just stop now. And you know, if you think in the live parties, it's like it will be weird if somebody just stop. And so this idea of the peaks, it's something that I see that we have. And although I completely as well agree with you, and I wasn't thinking of that in terms of like, although we work with the feedback from each other, then we still working within more a content that is aiming, that is trying sometimes with peaks to try to say something, but it just breaks down. And it's sometimes there's some things that we do together. Because sometimes you can see it.
yeah.
Sometimes you can see that there is that we both are in the same flow. Yes, but it's just very rare. In 1 hour, it's very rare. But sometimes we have these peaks, and actually you can see that because of the gaze, and from that point of view is very similar to what I say from dance and the solos, is because then you can see it actually, that you can see like if I'm completely within myself, then my I'm observed. But if I'm really like trying to listen to you like now, then I have to be attentive, not
Mm,
looking to my code, you know, my eyes. So the gaze is the face is and it's something that you cannot just act. It's just like being you there. And that's so I think we work. So I think we work mostly when we work together within this content, and then we sometimes we try to work towards a message. And I think it's just like, for instance, today we start talking like clearly about this idea of a message. Like, are we saying something, for instance? Um, yeah, uh, yeah. So I think that's is something very interesting. This idea of
Mm,
the message.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, also something I didn't really answer, but about the, what the message is, and I think it's something. I mean, of course, we don't have to like, come up with anything right now, but maybe it's something that we have to keep in mind. Yeah, I don't know. I feel now I'm really saturated.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, as well. I have to go soon because I have a meeting at 5.
Okay.
But
Yeah, let's finish recording here,
yeah,
unless you want to add
yeah,
anything.
right. And no,